Good morning. Thank you very much for your very kind introduction, and I really like to thank the LIFT Fund and the organizers for inviting me to speak at this very important annual forum of the LIFT. And it is it's a very timely discussion that you have picked on the issue of the knowledge platform. And because as you may know, the President Khaing has just recently emphasized the undertaking of the third wave of reforms in the country, which he meant is to guide the government ministries to achieve the economic reforms that can deliver the tangible results to the people that the government is supposed to serve. And by saying that, it means the government must achieve the quick wins. And then he also emphasized that when the ministries are going to implement these reforms, they should also bear in mind that the reforms needs also to be, reforms must also be sustained for the long run. So he is also emphasizing that the ministry should also do in every reform implementation to connect with the long-term processes. So in his words, he's emphasizing about building the foundations for the future. So in that sense, our discussion about the knowledge platform is something that becomes very critical for our country, for the current movement of reform implementation. At the same time, preparation for our next round of political processes, so that it can really build a solid foundation for future services to the people. At the same time, it can be a good foundation for the development partners and all the international knowledge makers like all of you to come and help Myanmar more effectively. I'd like to just give you a brief overview about some of the opportunities and challenges that we are facing, especially from the reform perspectives, and how the knowledge sharing and knowledge building exercises were working in the country in the last 2 years, and maybe perhaps that can give you some ideas about how we may be able to improve some of these, our ability to capture the opportunities and our effectiveness of overcoming some of the challenges. Let me start with the opportunities. Of course, the first set of opportunity is access to the policymakers. For the first time in the country, all our knowledge makers and sharers have direct access to the very senior leadership within the current government, who are very willing to implement reforms that can be more effective and can be efficient in delivering the results. So I think this is where we still have tremendous opportunity to improve the mechanisms to continue feeding that information to the senior leadership, because senior leaders are still looking for more innovative ways and more practical steps to address some of the deep-seated challenges that Myanmar is facing. Another set of opportunity is Myanmar being a latecomer. We are quite ready to learn from others. And as you may know, we are also living in a very good neighborhood. So if you look around anywhere in the world, it looks like Southeast Asia and East Asia is the place where we still find the dynamism in terms of economic growth. We have found many of the processes that really help achieve many of the development objectives like poverty reduction, MDGs, and these are all happening around us. So I think this is, in this regard, we have plenty of lessons to be learned from our neighbors. So I think that is something that we should also try to intensify some of the interactions and engagements with our own neighbors, so that we can really learn, and not only learning from afar, we can also go and check and see. And so seeing is believing, and then I think learning and observation can really help us to find our own solutions that can be quite favorable to our situations. And not only that, of course, our neighbors also serve as a, in the area where the lift is emphasizing on the agriculture, the livelihood, and then when you talk about the linking the value chains, and most of the very dynamic value chains are just around us. So I think it is also very important to understand some of these value chains just across our borders and try to connect with that. So I think this is an opportunity which I really wanted to bring attention from the development partners to help us to get the low-hanging fruits which can be found just around us. And of course, there are also opportunities because we just enjoy a lot of helping hands. So there are quite a bit of too much knowledge around us. So maybe perhaps that also comes with some of the challenges. So which we have to differentiate which knowledge is suitable and which knowledge can be contextualized effectively. So and then that acquisition is not easy. So I also wanted to reflect my colleagues, many of my colleagues, especially who are working in the ministries, various ministries, and who are really in the front line to transfer that knowledge to the people and the communities. They need some time to understand the various advantages and disadvantages of specific knowledge, and try to be familiar with some of the challenges in transferring that knowledge. So sometimes too many helping hands cannot serve the purpose. And then let me also emphasize on the panel's main focus, which is a knowledge platform. So this is where Myanmar is facing a huge challenge. We don't necessarily have a kind of an infrastructure that can facilitate more effective knowledge sharing across the country. So we don't, our universities and our ministries and our services and our stakeholders, they are all dispersed due to the legacy of the past. So maybe perhaps this is where I also wanted to bring your attention to building some of these infrastructure before we can talk about how we can actually acquire the knowledge and how we can make sure that the knowledge is being transferred. So because since we don't have that kind of infrastructure, then it also undermines our absorbing capacity of all the new knowledges that are coming from outside. And then another serious shortcoming we have, and then of course the government has already emphasized in its economic objectives. One of the areas which the government has emphasized is to improve the statistical system. We are talking about data. So when we try to promote some of the studies and knowledge ventures within the country, the first thing we encounter is we don't really have a reliable data, we don't really have a good data to start with. So I think the data are lacking, and so I think, of course, many of the current emphasis on building a good database system is a very good start. But I wanted to bring a more attention how to link these data through the processes. It's a very subtle thing, but it's also a very important thing. But because sometimes it's not much of a problem of the data. The data, some of the good data exists, but the problem is the data exists in a very dispersed fashion. So lately, I happen to be involved in a number of brainstorming discussions within the government agency to talk about one of the very important issue about the land use management and land data. Land data sits in at least 6 or 7 ministries, and then they are collected in a different format. It's also mainly because they are also being held by the different technical experts. And then there's no processes in between them to make it more interoperability. So I think this is where I want you to pay attention to building some of these processes that can also be able to utilize the data more effectively. So it is when we search for more sustainable knowledge sharing initiatives in this country, it's not much about building the data. It's also about building the processes that connect the data. I think that also is very important. So I wanted to emphasize 3 things, maybe just food for thought for the LIF, and then also many development partners who are helping us. At this stage, we need to build knowledge platforms. And of course, the new knowledge, all the important things are being welcomed. So we are actively looking for new knowledge, new ideas. We are not shy away from getting help. So these are all the hardware aspects we can easily import. But it's also very important that you also need to build the software aspects, our own domestic ability, our indigenous capacity, and our own context that can modify some of these imported materials to be able to utilize more effectively within our country. So I think this is the hardware and the software aspects of knowledge platform. And then in between them, you need, as I said, the processes. And then of course, in order to make these processes more sustained and more effective in the long run, you also need to have an architecture. So I think that's the architecture that can make these processes becoming more regular practices. So I think this is where I would really appreciate if all of you can start thinking along and helping us to have a more comprehensive undertaking of building a knowledge platform. The second point that I wanted to emphasize is something about knowledge. Of course, I have already emphasized that we have a perfect opportunity to link the knowledge to the policy. So, because there is already a commitment and willingness on part of the policymaker to absorb the knowledge. But, again, the linkage mechanisms are not readily available. So maybe perhaps this is where we have to pay attention to build mechanisms and processes and even institutions to link knowledge to the policy. And then also the knowledge, the delivery. So this is where, as you may remember, the president and the government has been emphasizing that the current reform initiatives must deliver the results at the end of the day. The first order of the reforms that we did was simply correcting all the distortions and mistakes of the past. So we are trying to cut the red tapes, we are trying to liberalize, and we are trying to remove all the distortions, and we close down all the render havens. So even in that front, I must say that our reforms are not stopped at all. So I think we have done a huge turnaround in terms of succeeding all the first order of the reform package. Then this is the reason that we are now seeing a macroeconomic stability, a kind of a conducive environment where we should start promoting more productive activities and also building new institutions. So then this is the stage where the president is also emphasizing more about the delivering results. And this is another aspect that we also need to understand, the mechanics of the delivery itself. So that from knowledge to the policy and policy to delivery, it's not automatic. So the delivery also needs to be tested out. So this is where you can't just, it won't be just sufficient to just focus on knowledge creation and sharing. It is also more about making knowledge to become a mechanisms to deliver. So I think this is another, the operational and practical aspect of utilizing the knowledge more effectively. And then in the practical terms, I would really want to encourage all of you to start doing many pilots. The pilots that can really give us a lot of feedback and some opportunity to test the new ideas, and then also try to improve all the processes of delivery. So I think that's also very much timely, because you don't have such a lengthy time frame to do the pilots, and then so we still can do a lot of things to achieve through the pilots in the next 18 months. And then last but not least, I also wanted to challenge you to also think about helping us in build new institutions. I would call it Knowledge Builders Network, because I think, I'm sorry that I couldn't catch up with you yesterday, but I heard that you have already talked a lot about many value chains. So how we can improve the value chains. Of course, in many of our challenges, is our market is just next door. The China and India are the two largest markets that we enjoy. But in reaching China, in our value chain, there are so much gaps, which we need to understand. And then of course, these gaps are also changing. So that's why it is not just enough to let the government alone to be the main dispenser of knowledge. So of course, we all agree that extension services, all kinds of research and development services, the government can help. These are very helpful, but you also need to have whole series of champions, and then their organization working at the different levels of value chains to fill all the gaps. So this is where we have such a wonderful opportunity to work with the civil society organizations at various levels. I know that LIV usually work a lot with them. And then this is a perfect opportunity to LIV to pay attention to how to connect the government to the civil society and try to build the whole network of knowledge builders along the value chains. And then this is something that, of course, my think tank is very keen to promote that kind of approach, so that our knowledge sharing exercise, the knowledge sharing processes can be sustained, can be effective and can become more efficient in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very interesting introduction to me. Honorable guests, resource partners, friends and colleagues from INGOs and NGOs and civil society organizations, and colleagues from the staff from the line ministries. Very good morning. So today I would like to share a couple of examples how food security working group has been working as a knowledge platform in this country. So, so these two key examples will tell you that how we are connecting among and between civil society organizations and also to the governmental departments at the regional level, local level, through to the union levels. So the first example is a resource center. So food security working group is setting the resource center in dry zone, Delta, and we are going to expand in the remote area, specifically in Kachin and Shan State and other areas. So this kind of resource center is really building the platform and sharing the knowledge, regular meetings, coordination and collaboration meeting among NGOs and also government departmental in those areas. What are the issues, emerging issues about food insecurity, and also what are the difficulties and challenges we share each other. So this kind of example, we are building the network at the local and regional level. And also we are offering the library services. This really make the villagers learn each other. They don't really have to come to the resource center, and they're getting our resource, easy materials, information, education and communication materials through resource center and within and through our wider network, NGOs and civil societies to the villagers and community. So this kind of mobile unit of resource platform we have been building up. At the same time, also we have been producing the publications over 40 kinds of materials. That's pretty much technical manual, how to grow rights and technology transfer, and how to transfer these knowledges into the community and farmers and women organizations. So this is just an example how we are working. So within our strategy this year and also next 3 years, we are going to expand our resource center in all states and regions if possible. And this is the decentralized system that would like to introduce to the stakeholders and these actors to be connected within and among network. It's like we are serving as a satellite of the resource, a pool of resource that we are building up. So this kind of satellite, we are trying to create the cells and modules and models within the country. So we confident to perform this kind of task, important role of knowledge platform in country, among civil societies and also to the our line departments. So I think this is the thing we would like to give you the example. The another example lesson learned is the process of policy dialogue. For example, we have been working for the farmer protection rights and enhancement, welfare enhancement law and bylaw process. So we have been working closely with the parliamentary members and specifically the Committee of Agriculture, Livestock and Fishery from the Parliament, and then we have been giving the inputs and doing the analysis and a kind of briefing paper and having the results from the evidence-based research that we did in the community through our members. So this kind of evidence-based research can tell you that how much we need to learn each other. It's not only best practices, it's also bad practices, not to repeat in the future. That will give a lot of inputs and resource pool to our dialogue, policy dialogue, specifically this kind of negotiation and facilitation process with the line departments and also with the specific farmer groups, and then also community groups, and also with our NGO partners, and also the parliamentary members. So this gave us the space. We are creating the space in this country, you know, to have this kind of really diverse network. Having the wider network and diverse, this really create to fit into our policy formulation in this country. It's really, you know, can practically implement at the grassroots level, and it's really to bring the voices from the community, and having the voices from the community and the people will really make the policy and national framework happen, and it's really legalization and also implementation at the level will be effective. So this kind of creating effective and strategic knowledge platform in country, we are hoping to shape and hoping to influence policy dialogue and to really have efficient and effective policy formulation in country that really can tell the people that how much this kind of policy dialogue will be the effective platform for the country. So these two lessons I would like to highlight. Thank you very much.
And to have been invited to such a distinguished gathering, so thank you very much. I think also another point I would like to follow my distinguished colleagues here. It is a very timely moment. It is the moment to talk about a knowledge management platform, mainly because we have the opportunity to bring hard evidence together to support the very progressive policy reforms that are happening. And progressive policy reforms are ones that will last and work for the whole country, including addressing the disparities and the differences, and ones that can also be monitored and will stand the test of time. So from the MIMU's perspective, and what the MIMU is a knowledge management platform. So I'm very happy to be sitting here having a chance to tell you about it. So it's unique. The MIMU exists only in Myanmar. There is nothing exactly like it anywhere else in the world. What's special about it is that the MIMU supports information management, knowledge management in humanitarian and development sectors countrywide. And the reason it was created in 2007, and I see some people in the room who were very involved at that time, including Andrew Kirkwood, is that in 2007 there were many different data sets, parts of data sets, many data providers, many data gaps. Nobody had the picture, and nobody was filling in parts of the picture. So the MIMU was created to actually bring together what's available, flag some of the gaps, fill as many of the gaps as are possible, and try to actually make that information widely available as a basis for humanitarian and development work. We are also very broadly owned. The MIMU has a 10-member board, and again, I see some of our board members here, and that ensures it includes international NGOs, Myanmar NGOs, UN and donors for the moment, but it ensures that it has a wide basis of responding to different humanitarian and development issues. So I wanted to just pull out a few lessons from the work of the MIMU that I think is very useful for your work in developing a knowledge management platform for agriculture and rural development. The first is to really build a culture of information sharing. That means going beyond just making a report. It means sharing the data. If we just share information that we gather, agricultural census, other census data, any survey data, if we share it only as a report, it's very difficult to really use it. Secondly, we know that the data is not perfect. None of us are in a perfect environment. I'm from Australia, and the data that comes out of Australia is far from perfect. Craig, I'm sure you could support me on some of that. What's important is to recognize where the limitations are in the data that's available, but to still make it available. The second point I would make is the importance of using standards and integrating standards across the information that we gather and the data sets that we hold. If we are all using the same data standards, and they are not so complicated, if we are using these data standards, your information on agriculture in a particular area can be combined with the information on health, with education, with markets, with roads, with a whole variety of different indicators and different information sets. But that won't happen as long as every agency, every ministry, every department has their own method of storing information. It's very easy to actually do something about that, and that's through using codes. So the MIMU has created the place codes. These are codes for the 68,000 settlements across the country. And if one set of data, say education, management information system, is using these codes, and other information at village level is using these codes, we can put them together. And you can start the sort of analysis that is really needed for rural development. That is multi-sector analysis. The third lesson I would have from my experience here is be critical about what to collect. Be very critical about deciding what is it really important to have to make decisions. We can collect a huge amount of data. We have a huge amount of data. Anybody who says to me that there's not much data in Myanmar, I say, well, we are swimming in data. But we need to make the pool a bit smaller and focus on what should be in that swimming pool. So be very critical about what are the key things we need to collect. Collect them on the basis of standards and across a broad group so we can use them. That data we collect should be at the lowest possible level, and that is so that we can show differences and disparities. We can show where the needs are. If we collect and provide information only at state level, at township level, we can't see which areas of that township need extra support. Very, very important for rural development and agriculture sectors. The fourth point I have is what we do then is we convert, and what we need to do is convert the data to a useful form. And I brought you one example from the MIMU, and this is actually from 189 organizations feed into the MIMU 3W, explaining what their activities are in sectors and subsectors down to the village level. Now, that's a huge database. It's 98,000 rows in that database. Who can use this? So what we do is we provide this in forms that either give you some analysis or promote asking the right questions to be able to do the analysis. So this is an example of the recent 3W dashboard that the MIMU has released. You'll find this on our website, and also on DVDs that we circulate. You can click on the left side. The first dark blue circle is agriculture. So we have chosen sector. Theoretically, we have agricultural activities of these 190 agencies across all states and regions. But when we look at it by township, we see some areas don't have. Now, currently, this is only agencies' activities. It is not the government activities, which are enormous. But it shows the potential of bringing data together. Underneath, you have that circle, the donut, is which of the projects that are ongoing, dark blue, or which ones are already just completed. And underneath, we have who is doing them, who are the main partners that are actually working in those areas. So the importance of actually bringing information together in user-oriented tools And that's where technology now is our best friend, but keeping them simple enough. Finally, not to forget analysis. It's all about anything to do with knowledge management is not storage. It's about analysis, it's about decision making. So I'll stop there and pass you back to a facilitator, and I'm very happy to discuss in the